Welcome to Pasadena Monthly, formerly known as News Wrap Local. I'm your host, Justin Chapman. Thanks for being here. Happy Black History Month. After taking a look at what's been going on in Pasadena this past month, we'll speak with our guests, Mayor Victor Gordo, former Mayor Bill Paparian, and Bill Creedon of the USS Pasadena Foundation. But before we get started, let's check out these Pasadena media news briefs.
On Monday, February 6, 2023, the Pasadena City Council approved a contract to retrofit and renovate the Pasadena Central Library. The contract, for over $6 million, was awarded to Gruen Associates and their consultants. Beginning March 2023, they will conduct the research and development necessary to aid the city in effectively estimating costs and facilitating construction. This initial 2-year phase will include a public outreach effort and thorough advisory review aimed to preserve the library's history and strengthen its future. Concurrently, the city will be in pursuit of solidifying funding for the construction phase, which is anticipated to begin summer 2025 and last up to 3 years. The essential process of retrofitting and renovating is not only the first step toward updating the library to meet modern needs, but also to reimagine, enhance, and ensure the future services and programming the institution will contribute to the community of Pasadena. The Pasadena Central Library will turn 100 years old on February 12, 2027.
We know it's important to preserve the historic character of the building while also making enhancements that will meet the future and current needs of our community as we bring this 100-year-old building into the next century.
The city of Pasadena will host a number of events in honor of its celebration of Black History Month. Top events to look forward to include the 41st Annual Black History Parade and Festival, which returns on Saturday the 18th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. This year's theme is Celebrating Our Excellence, the Legacy of Councilmember John J. Kennedy, with award-winning sportscaster Jim Hill as Grand Marshal. Another award-winning performer, Chaz Ross, will be presenting Chaz's World of African Drums, an exhibit at La Pintoresca Branch Library on the 23rd at 4 p.m. The following day, Pasadena City Hall will be host to an outdoor movie screening of Marvel Studios' Black Panther 2: Wakanda Forever. The event, which includes live music with food available for purchase, begins at 5 p.m. at Centennial Square.
These events are so important because it really allows the people of Pasadena and surrounding areas to really understand the rich history and the excellence that happens in the Black community. So you definitely have a lot of diverse groups that are going to be here, and we want the entire community to come out and support and see what it's all about.
On Thursday, Pasadena's new police chief Eugene Harris went out to a community meet and greet event hosted by Councilmember Tyrone Hampton. The event was set at various locations within District 1, where community members were welcome to come out and engage with the new chief and other PPD personnel.
With all the things that this city has, it's got a lot of big city issues with a small town feel, and certainly by the turnout that we've had at some of our events, community engagement mantra. And so for me, it's right up my alley because I think that those are some of the most important elements to providing that community service. So I'm glad to be a part of it. I'm going to commit to advancing the greatness of the city and advancing the greatness of the police department. And I couldn't be prouder to be the leader of this organization.
Chief Harris was hired by Pasadena's new city manager, Miguel Marquez, and has been serving since January of 2023. He previously served as the police chief in the city of San Gabriel since 2016.
Speaking of Mayor Gordo, he delivered his third annual State of the City speech last night at the Kaiser Permanente Bernard J. Tyson School of Medicine in Pasadena. The theme was Together We Thrive Pasadena, and he addressed inflation, the approach the city is taking to the state's budget shortfall, housing, the 710 stub, violence prevention, climate change, and mental health services. The speech, which you can watch on Pasadena Media, is the first step in the city's budget process, which will wrap up in May. Let's turn next to our lightning round of news updates. 1. The City Council unanimously passed a resolution declaring a climate emergency and committing to achieving 100% carbon-free electricity by 2030. The resolution was in large part a result of the advocacy efforts of Pasadena 100, a grassroots coalition of local nonprofits. Last year, PUSD and PCC also adopted the resolution, and many other cities have already pledged to forge ahead on achieving carbon-free power. This week, Pasadena Water and Power collected community input on the Integrated Resource Plan, its 25-year blueprint for providing reliable, affordable, and environmentally responsible energy. 2. The 2024 campaign is well underway. Many seats are up for grabs in this game of political musical chairs. Assemblymember Chris Holden and State Senator Anthony Portantino are terming out in their seats. So Holden is challenging LA County Supervisor Catherine Barger for her 5th district seat as she runs for her 3rd and final term. And Portantino, former LA City Attorney Mike Feuer, actor Ben Savage, LAUSD board member Nick Melvoin, entrepreneur Joshua Bocanegra, Assemblymember Laura Friedman, and drag queen and Silver Lake Neighborhood Council member Maybe A Girl and LA County Sheriff's Deputy Patrick Lee Gibson are running for Congressmember Adam Schiff's House seat representing the 30th District, as Schiff and Congress members Barbara Lee and Katie Porter run for the California Senate seat of Dianne Feinstein, who is retiring next year. Former Pasadena Police Lieutenant and former District Director to Holden, Dr. Flente Riddle, and Pasadena City Council member Felicia Williams are running for Holden's 41st Assembly seat. Williams will have to give up her District 2 seat to run, so that will be up for election as well. Former Sierra Madre Mayor and Pasadena resident John Harabedian, Alhambra City Councilwoman Sasha Renee Perez, and Crescenta Valley Town Council member Elizabeth Allers are running for Portantino's State Senate seat. The 2024 elections will take place March 5th and November 5th. 3. The local radio station KPCC has changed its name to LAist 89.3. Southern California Public Radio, based in Pasadena and home to KPCC, LAist.com, which the radio station acquired in 2018 for about $50,000, and LAist Studios, which produces podcasts, announced the move as part of a strategy to consolidate its radio, podcast, digital content, and events under the LAist brand, to reduce confusion and to create a cohesive name for both listeners and readers. KPCC will remain the official radio station call letters and will be read on air once an hour. Next month, we'll have Southern California Public Radio's Chief Content Officer, Kristen Muller, on the show, so stay tuned. 4. City Council approved a $6.1 million contract for the seismic retrofitting and renovating of the Pasadena Central Library, which was awarded to Gruen Associates. They will begin preparing environmental documentation, final construction drawings, and cost estimates for the retrofitting this month, which lasts about 2 years. A public outreach campaign and reviews of the retrofit design alternatives will be conducted by the Technical Oversight Committee, Historic Preservation Commission, and Public Safety Committee. In fall of this year, Public Works staff will return to City Council with a recommendation for a specific retrofit design. Meanwhile, the city will continue to pursue funding opportunities for the construction phase of the project. Construction is anticipated to begin in summer 2025 and last approximately 30 to 36 months. 5. The 41st Annual Black History Parade was held on Fair Oaks Avenue last Saturday in honor of the memory of the late Pasadena City Council member John J. Kennedy. A large contingent of local residents, including myself, marched in the parade to celebrate his life, and it was a really great event with a big turnout. I think John would have been proud. This was the first time in 3 years that the parade and festival were back in person due to the pandemic. 6. The city is moving forward on the Colorado Street Bridge barrier enhancements project to mitigate suicides. This month, Public Works removed the mock-ups from the bridge and held a community meeting to announce that 2 design consultant bids for vertical barriers were submitted during a second RFP after the first RFP received no bids last year, which delayed the project. City staff will onboard the design consultant in April and develop new barrier design concepts and collect community input in the spring and summer. Then in the fall, the vetted design concepts will be reviewed by the Historic Preservation and Design Commissions and then go to the Public Safety Committee and City Council by the end of this year for a final recommendation. For more information, visit cityofpasadena.net/Colorado-Street-Bridge. 7. We're in the middle of yet another cold storm. The Northwest Commission recently sent a letter to City Council urging them to find a new location for a bad weather shelter, which the city has gone without since the beginning of the pandemic. Housing Director Bill Wong told the Northwest Commission that the city is currently vetting a site for that use and that there's a good possibility it will come through. Last summer, the Housing Department put out an RFP to host a bad weather shelter, but received no responses. Meanwhile, the city continues to provide motel vouchers to unhoused residents. 8. The city manager's office said that both renters and landlords have asked for clarification as to whether rent rollbacks, rent increases, and other provisions of the recently approved Measure H are valid and how they apply. Quote, these are substantive questions about the measure which the Rental Housing Board will be empowered to answer when the board is appointed. The measure is currently in effect, but by its own terms and pursuant to the provisions of the measure, city staff is not authorized to interpret or to apply the law and must defer to the Rental Housing Board, close quote. As of yesterday, 5 applicants have filed applications to be considered for the board, and 3 have qualified out of 44 who pulled papers. Appointments will be made in late April. On March 28th, a court will hold a hearing on the Apartment Association's lawsuit to invalidate Measure H. For more information, visit cityofpasadena.net/measure-H. 9. The Human Relations Commission voted to recommend that the City Council remove the portrait of former Mayor Al Stewart and the Arthur Noble Award plaque of Attorney Herbert Hahn from City Hall for their leading role in establishing whites-only real estate covenants in Pasadena in the middle of the 20th century. And 10. City employee Ruth Martinez-Banin has been elected to serve as the president of the Tournament of Roses Association in 2031, including the 142nd Rose Parade and the 117th Rose Bowl game on January 1st, 2031. She has worked as a project manager in the city's Economic Development Division for over 23 years. This is the first time a longtime city employee has been selected to serve as president of the Tournament of Roses. Let's patch in our panel. Mayor Victor Gordo, former Mayor Bill Paparian, and Bill Creedon, president of the USS Pasadena Foundation. Thank you all so much for coming on the show. So today, as we film this, or yesterday for viewers, today, February 23rd, is the 78th anniversary of the raising of the U.S. flag on Iwo Jima. One ship that was there for that historic event was the USS Pasadena. So Mr. Creedon, you served as U.S. Navy captain and submariner and are now heading up this foundation. So tell us about the history of the USS Pasadena, the previous ships that have had that name.
Sure, there have been 3 ships to have the name of our city. The first was a collier in World War I, a transport ship that transported coal and fuel and munitions. And it went back and forth many, many times. The second USS Pasadena was a light cruiser, which was commissioned beginning of 1944. So it saw action in the Pacific at the end of the war, was present in Tokyo Bay when the surrender documents were signed aboard USS Missouri. The ship was decommissioned in the early 50s. And then the present USS Pasadena, which is a nuclear attack submarine, and that was built at Electric Boat Company in Groton, Connecticut, launched in 1987 and commissioned in the beginning of 1991. The ship is nearing the end of its life and is expected to go into a deactivation process sometime in 2024.
And so, Mr. Paparian, tell us about the current ship and you know what the situation is and your efforts in trying to get a new ship named after Pasadena.
Well, as Mr. Creedon mentioned, the current USS Pasadena was commissioned in 1989. And at that time, it represented the most advanced weaponry available in the United States Navy, a Los Angeles class fast attack nuclear powered submarine, which is capable of launching Tomahawk missiles, cruise missiles, and has been all over the world. But now 30 years later, the technology has passed it by. And as Mr. Creedon mentioned, it is now slated to be decommissioned, which means that it's going to be going to the scrap heap sometime beginning next year and then concluding in 2025. And so with the assistance of the office of the current mayor, Victor Gordo, we have begun a campaign to convince the Secretary of the Navy to use his discretionary powers to name a new submarine, hopefully a submarine, to carry on the tradition of the United States Navy having a ship named after our city.
And Mayor Gordo, you recently wrote a letter, as I understand it, and spoke to the Secretary of the Navy, Carlos Del Toro, about this issue. Tell us about those conversations and where things stand.
Well, let me first give credit where credit is due. Bill Creedon and Bill Paparian assisted me in crafting a letter. They're the experts on all things submarine, and they did a terrific job. And thank you for helping to prepare me and brief me on all of the technical language that needed to go into the letter and the history. That's important. So we together prepared a letter and sent that letter off to the Secretary of the Navy. And we got a response. And I asked for a meeting with the Secretary of the Navy. And we got a second response, and we had a virtual meeting, if you will, with the Secretary of the Navy. I did, and I was joined by, asked Congress member Judy Chu to join me in that conversation. And it was a very, very positive conversation. The Secretary understood the history and importantly understood the commitment that the Pasadena Foundation is willing to make. The history is we have a foundation that has always supported the USS Pasadena and its families and its crew, and we're committed to continuing to do that for the future USS Pasadena. And that was the message. It was very well received. The Secretary Del Toro committed to looking at the issue very closely. We understand that a new ship, is likely to be constructed not in the next year or 2 years, but a little further out into the future, 8 to 10 years. Bill can tell you better. But we said, let's work on it together. Let's dedicate a whole number, I should say, right now, that we can then call the USS Pasadena once it's constructed. So I feel very good about it. And I feel good about it because the foundation has been laid over so many years by so many people doing the right thing and supporting the USS Pasadena in a big way.
And you invited the Secretary to Pasadena, is that right?
I did. And, we're still waiting to hear. He's got some duty testifying to Congress in May and June. But I think it's a good opportunity for the Secretary, I told him, to visit Pasadena, get to know members of the foundation, and maybe also stay for Memorial Day, the day after his visit.
Great. And Mr. Creedon, can you tell us a little bit
before? I apologize, the day before.
Okay. Mr. Creedon, can you tell us a little bit about the USS Pasadena Foundation and
Sure.
the city support network for the ship and its crew that Mayor Gordo mentioned?
Well, the class of submarine that Pasadena belongs to is the Los Angeles class. They were built started building them in the late 70s and built them. They built actually 58 submarines in the Los Angeles class, and they're all named after cities. The foundation has been in operation since the ship was designated as a new construction, hull number named after, and they were going to name it after the city. So the foundation roots go back to 1988. We are a 501c3 tax-exempt charity with a federal registration and a state of California registration. We have been very active at the beginning of the ship's life, raising money for the events associated with commissioning and the launch of the ship. We have since maintained a very active relationship, doing everything from recognition of the ship's Sailor of the Year to paying for the ship's Christmas party. When the ship is on deployment, we pay for a night out for the spouses, sort of a halfway night for them. And we have continued this on over the life of the ship. We have a very close relationship with the Tournament of Roses, and we have representatives from usually the commanding officer of the submarine unless the ship's out, but also submarine force leadership that have come to Pasadena and enjoy the Tournament of Roses, the parade and the game. So the Navy considers the relationship between the foundation and the ship to be, if not the best city support organization, is certainly one of the top 2 or 3. The submariners will tell you we have the best, but it's a very vibrant, active, financially sound organization, and we're ready to continue to do this job into the future.
That's great. And Mr. Paparian, what are the next steps, and how can Pasadena residents and the Pasadena City Council get involved and support this effort?
Well, I think it's important that there be a broader community conversation in support of this effort with the leadership of Mayor Gordo. And if we look at past efforts, the current USS Pasadena had broad community support. When the Department of Defense was going to relocate the Marine Corps Reserve Center out of Pasadena, the community banded together, and we were successfully able to convince the Department of Defense, and more significantly, the United States Congress, to approve the funding to keep a Marine Reserve Center here in the city of Pasadena. And I would hope that we could have this issue discussed more broadly by our elected representatives on the city council. We do have the support of Congressmember Chu. We'd like to see the support of Senator Padilla and other elected representatives who represent our city in Washington, D.C. And I think that we've got off to a very good start. I think the mayor's invitation to the Secretary of the Navy to visit Pasadena is an important step in the right direction.
Absolutely. And Mayor Gordo, why does Pasadena deserve to have a Navy ship named after it?
Well, we need support for our Marines first and foremost. Well, and you know, kidding aside, I think it's the other way around. I think, you know, the Navy and the country deserve a ship named the Pasadena, the USS Pasadena. You know, there's a long history, there's a long tradition, and Pasadena is prepared to continue that tradition. And the tradition goes beyond just the naming of a ship. The tradition is residents supporting its naval officers and its Navy submariners, and saying that we care. This is a community that has had strong support, not just for the naming of a ship, but for the real people and the real families who work on that ship. And that's an important message that I believe the Navy wants to keep going. And I think we're the best in class when it comes to that. Our community sets the standard. And so I think it's important for the Navy to continue to allow Pasadena to set that standard as an example to every other community. We should be supporting our servicemen and women.
Right. Well, yeah, thank you all so much for coming on the show and taking time to speak with us about this. Please keep us updated on this issue, and if the Secretary of the Navy comes, and how we can support the effort and you know, ensure that you know, the legacy continues after all of these years. Before we go, here is This Month in Pasadena History. It was this month in 1982 when Loretta Thompson Glickman became the first Black mayor of Pasadena and the first Black woman to be mayor of an American city over 100,000 residents. Mayor Thompson Glickman grew up in Pasadena, attended PCC, sang jazz, and taught high school English in Pasadena public schools in the early 70s. She was a choir director at Pasadena's Grace United Methodist Church and was the first Black woman member of the Pasadena Tournament of Roses Association. As Visit Pasadena put it, she created monumental milestones in equality and race relations for Pasadena. Thank you all so much for joining me for this episode of Pasadena Monthly. Tune in every fourth Friday of the month at 5 p.m. Learn more at pasadenamedia.org and justindouglaschapman.com. Drop me a line at jchapman@citypasadena.net. We'll see you next time.